Good evening, Mark.
Hey, what's up, Tom? It is President's Day. Did you know that?
It is. I made
And
reference to that today on my other live
absolutely.
stream. A little gratitude about having leaders that
Right.
protect our liberties. Swore to the liberties we have under our Constitution. So I take it seriously. I just encourage
Awesome.
people to know a
Do,
little bit about our heritage and our roots, and be grateful that we live in
true,
this
yeah.
great country that we're in. So, but
Yeah, and the two presidents, do you know who they are, right? I mean, some people may say like President's Day. So, I mean, there's only two, right? Washington and Lincoln. I mean, sorry, but that's who they're celebrating on this day. But
exactly,
yeah.
yeah. So, but we had a lot of great presidents that
Oh, absolutely.
stood up
Absolutely
as
we did.
well. So I put many of them in that same category. But they're the two most significant people in American history for sure. That is for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, we got another special night
Oh
tonight.
my goodness. And you talk about presidential and the name, the name, this gentleman has a name, man. I'll tell you, it is political. I mean, Benjamin Franklin Gay the Third. How cool is that? Now, Ben had to grow up with that handle, but to me, that is just like, and that's why I say BFG3, that succinct and to the point.
Yeah. And tonight, and I always like to do the preface here. Is what ex, what Elevate Your Profits is all about. It's really about to bring people in like Ben that has a great story, wisdom, experience, so that there's a lot of people out there that are looking at to be in business themselves, and hopefully we'll provide some information tonight for those individuals, or those individuals that are already in business. What are the takeaways that they can take from tonight's interview and apply in their own business and their life? Because I think Elevate Your Profits is not just what goes into your bank account. I believe it really starts from the mindset to the wallet and everything in between. So tonight I'm really excited to have Benjamin Gay the Third on again. I was just pulled my books out, that I gotten here, and I can't believe that the first time it was in October of 2020. Can you believe we've been doing this thing called going live for that length of time? Mark,
That's
time is
that's
flying.
scary. That's scary. I never thought I'd be doing this when Ken Walls reached out and touched me and called me on the phone, and I was like, "What is live streaming?" Until I actually saw him. Wild stuff. Wild stuff. And here I am doing this. You and I have no business doing this. We're way too young to be doing this, Tom. I just want everyone to know that. So,
Love the
yeah,
humor, love the humor.
uh,
But it's just like doing live stream. Putting
right,
innovative things into the
right.
marketplace, bring more value, um, is so critical. And so many people I see in the business world aren't taking advantage of technology like this.
Right.
And unfortunately, depending what type of business, they may just fall off the business cliff. Not staying up with the innovative ways to do business. And I think this type of forum is a great forum for just about any business. But without any further ado, I'll let you introduce our guest.
Okay. Well, if you don't know who he is, I know he's probably back there chilling and having a Merlot or something, or maybe smoking a stogie. But Ben Gay truly epitomizes. When you get into the sales game, if you don't know who he is, and even from the mindset perspective, what Ben can bring to the table is amazing. His journeys, his travels, what he's done. I always kiddingly say, and he knows this, the pride, excuse me, of Eastlake, which is in Georgia. To me, he's a Southern gentleman, very well spoken, articulate, and it's just the way he presents his content and the way he conducts himself. And you'd never know he's a salesperson. He's a fantastic listener. He tells great stories. And, I could go on what Ben's done. Closers one, two, three. I'm sure he's probably got four, five, six. He's ghostwritten a lot of different manuscript out there. He's still doing it today, and that's the beauty of having Ben with us. And I truly am honored. And we need to bring him on here, Tom, and let Ben, just share some more wisdom with us.
Good evening, Ben. Good afternoon there in California.
It is 3 o'clock here, 3:12. So good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
But good evening where you are.
Yes. So is Gigi keeping you in check, or has she?
Yeah, I worked in and around prisons for 11 years, and Gigi is sort of like many of the wardens I met over the years. But it was just what I needed. I wish she'd shown up a few years sooner.
Oh, okay.
My life would have been even better. But
outstanding.
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah.
That's
we'll have to have a replay on that one, Ben, because
Yeah.
that's a great story, when we had you on in the past, and so that in itself is an evening of conversation for sure. But tonight, we just really want to, talk a little bit about your journey, how you got involved into what the myths I call it about business is the area of network marketing, MLM. A lot of people, there's a lot of myths out there, don't understand how businesses are structured. And so, I just, I think that's tonight would be sort of the foundation of our conversation. And we'll just open up for questions. We got a lot of people already coming on, so we'll monitor those responses, and if they got questions, we'll make sure we get them up so we can get those answered. But Ben, just share a little bit. You've been an entrepreneur since what was the age you first started monetizing your skills?
Well, I monetized it for other people when I was 10 and won the Atlanta, Georgia Krispy Kreme donut selling contest. And I did win a bicycle, so that
Wow.
was good. But I monetized it for real, and then I sold Christmas cards. I've been selling something. I don't remember a time when I wasn't selling something. I was the aggravating kid in the neighborhood dragging the wagon, and in the wagon was whatever I was selling this week. But at age 14, I started a lawn mowing service, and I don't just mean a kid mowing lawns. I had 25 kids working for me in the growing season. I did the selling, the inspecting, and the collecting. They did the mowing. We split the money. And my system was such that we 2 or 3 times the amount of money that the customers would have paid left to their own devices with one little scraggly kid and his lawnmower. So the 50-50 split was great for me. I didn't have to mow lawns. And great for them because their 50% was more than they were getting 100% when it was on their program and their system. So that was it. And I don't remember a time since then when I haven't been gainfully employed somewhere doing something through Davison's in Atlanta, Macy's now, or it's not there, I guess, but 180 Peachtree Street. And I got into multi-level marketing, which I know we wanted to talk about tonight, September 15th, 1965, Wednesday, when I answered a little ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. 3 of us answered that ad, grand total. The guy who ran it told me later he was very disappointed he only got 3 people. But let's look at who he got. He got me, who went on to be president of the company. He got the greatest salesman I ever worked with, Jimmy Rucker, my high school running buddy, business partner, and somewhere along the line, he revealed himself as a master closer, sales infiltrator, literally the best I've ever worked with personally. And the third person who answered that same ad was Zig Ziglar. So
Wow.
although
Wow.
Bill Dempsey never ran that ad again, I said, you know, you ought to run that one frequently. In fact, we took it and ran it ourselves when he didn't want to. He said, Ben, I only got 3 people. I said, well, look at the 3 people. We're the top people in the organization nationwide. I'll say it was Jimmy and I, but I was number 1, Zig was number 2, nationally within months of answering that ad. So that's how I got hooked on multi-level marketing. And the good news and the bad news about it, I'll discuss either one with you, and what a miraculous change it was in my life.
Well, Ben, I'm going to back you up. You say you got involved in 1965
65.
in network marketing, but I want to back you up when you built your lawn business. That sort of sounded like one of those pyramid things.
Yeah, it was. I got in early. I was at the top of the pyramid.
That's right. So, well, that's, I just had to say that, a lot of times people don't understand how businesses are structured, and I thought it was appropriate to throw that out there. So you started the pyramid thing, it sounds like, or the network marketing back in the day.
Well,
so
we've talked about this casually in the past, and maybe your viewers and listeners would like to hear my version of it. In that, people go, is that a pyramid? I wrote, by the way, or helped write. I was part of a committee for the state Senate in California. I wrote Penal Code 329, which explains to the layman what a pyramid scheme is. The good news and the bad news. A pyramid scheme is exactly the scheme I was using at Macy's. We were selling direct to the customer. We were the Avon ladies of retail. We bought from distributors who had bought it for less money than we got it for, obviously, who bought it from manufacturers who made it for less money than they sold it to the manufacturers, who bought all of the ingredients from salespeople at a lower level pieces of it. And if you stretch that out, let's say I'll just pick some. Here's a coffee cup. This coffee cup, especially if it had parts, would be made up of various parts bought for pennies on the dollar, pennies on the retail dollar. It would be assembled. Somebody had to pay them to do that. Then it would be sold to a distributor at a higher price, who would then sell it or be represented by a manufacturer's rep who's getting paid to sell it, who would then call on us. And in fact, I have a mug right here that someone I know on this show paid for, and it came through the same system. It's the normal distribution of things. The only way that breaks a little bit is when you see a farmer on the side of the road beside his field. He grew it and he's selling it to you. But even then, where do you get the seed? From a distributor one step down, who bought it probably half of what he paid for it. And then, of course, you got to get in the ground. Oh, that would be a tractor. So where do you get the tractor from? Everything is multi-level marketing. Here's the difference. Multi-level marketing, as we talk about it now, allowed the little guy like me and Zig and Jimmy Rucker to get in on the game. We got to climb on the jungle gym that everybody else in business has been using literally for thousands of years. There's no difference. And the reason, there was some dishonesty involved, as there are in all businesses, and lawyers and doctors and so on, that brought down heat. But what really upset a lot of people, I know I was in the vitamin business and the cosmetic business, still am around it. I'm in and out of it as a consultant for over 50 years. And what they don't like is you being able to sell a jar of fill in the blank for $9.95 when they're asking $200 for it, but the jar only costs to manufacture a couple of bucks. They didn't want the little guys like us to get into the game. And fortunately, some people ahead of me, a generation ahead of me, figured that out, started companies like NutriBio. My boss, when I was president of Holiday Magic Cosmetics, was William Penpatrick. He came from NutriBio. That's where he figured it out. And it enabled us to get in on the business. And the thing that upset people was it broke up the happy little family of people who've been overcharging for things for years. And it enabled little uneducated folks like me to make a great deal of money. And that, for some reason, unnerves some governmental workers. They figure something like, you want to draw regulatory people in on you, get an office building, park about 5 Cadillacs in front of it. You will have people checking with you, wanting to know what you're doing, and because they don't like to see people succeed. I don't mean everybody, but there's an element of bureaucratic government people who don't want to see people rise up. I went in multi-level marketing, thanks to that little ad I answered. I went from, and every figure I give, you have to multiply by 10 because we're going back to 1965,
65.
over 55. Yeah, 35, 45, 50, be 56, coming up on 57 years ago. So every figure multiplied by 10 would be a good rough way to do it. I was making $100 a week at the time working for my father. Jimmy Rucker and I, in a matter of months, first 6 months were a little rough. We can talk about that later if that's of any interest to you. But starting about the 7th or 8th month, we went from $100 a week working for my dad to $40,000 a month. So about $400,000, $500,000 in today's money a month. We were 23 years old, high school graduates. I don't think Jimmy graduated from college, but he stayed longer than I did. I was only there 3 weeks, long enough, before you laugh at me, to be elected president of my freshman class at Georgia State College. Then it's now Georgia State University. But I wasn't there when they swore me in because I dropped out before the inauguration. It's sort of a shame. I think they should have the inauguration on the day of the election. So you're elected and you're in. But that's oversimplified what caused, when things started happening that fast and we pulled up in our first Cadillacs, where we were riding bicycles about 4 years before that, it rattles people. Oh, there must be something crooked. There must be something wrong going on. What's going on is what has always gone on in business, but MLM, direct sales, enables the little guy to play with the big guys. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard in interviews saying if they had it to do all over again, they would go into MLM. I'm talking about very successful people, billionaires. If I had it to do over again, I would go into MLM to get started.
Absolutely. Because,
Awesome.
when we look at what it takes to go into business, I've been an entrepreneur, been in business for myself since 1983. And the traditional ways to go into business, number one, is it's very expensive to open the doors of a business. Yeah. Whether it be a traditional brick and mortar, whether it be a service you sell or whatever, today in today's environment, websites and web development and all those things. I just read a statistic that the average person going into business today, just to get the first day door open, is $60,000. I mean, that's a national average. But in reality, there's other opportunities out there that people look at or think they're great opportunities. Franchises, for example, how are they structured? Just like in network marketing, right?
Right.
No different. And what does that cost somebody to go into business? Or if you wanted to today, think about this, Ben. What would it cost for you to get a truck, a trailer, a power mower, the lawn trimmer, and insurance, liability, all those things? Before you mow one lawn, you probably got about 150 grand tied up. Would you say that's
if you're
pretty
going to enter it, if you're going to enter it seriously, absolutely.
Right.
People used to ask my dad, does it bother you he's wearing out your lawnmower? He said, no, Ben's too smart for that. He doesn't use our lawnmower. It's his his friends are wearing out their families' lawnmower. So my entry cost
Oh
was sort of
boy.
low, but to attack it in a serious manner, sure. You know,
Right.
I see people around our neighborhood. That business isn't little kids anymore. It's now Mexicans, Vietnamese, and so on. It's sort of the entry level into business. But even they're driving around in $50,000 trucks with a trailer and equipment on the back and 4 or 5 employees. They pull up and attack, in 3 different directions
Right.
simultaneously.
Right.
So that's not nickels and dimes anymore.
No.
Hey, can I put a pause real quick? Jay Skinner just asked this question. What were you selling with Zig and Rucker back then? Can you reiterate that? I think he might
Sure.
have caught. Yeah.
Yeah, Zig was selling cookware in Columbia, South Carolina, had not yet had his big hit. Jimmy
Mhm.
Rucker and I were working for my father in the food brokerage business. And so we were selling food, Stouffer's, Jesse Jewel chicken, C-Pack, Hunt's ketchup. And so I can go through a grocery store and I feel like I'm going to a reunion because I used to stack that and stamp that and so on. And, so you had to sell it
Right.
and then stamp it, with that little machine. They weren't
Hmm.
scanning them up at the front. And so on. So that's what we did. Food for us, longs
Right.
before that, and Zig cookware. And then to answer the real question, Jay, if in case you didn't know what Holiday Magic was, I always assume everybody did. It was the largest MLM direct sales company on the planet in the mid 60s to early 70s. It was cosmetics. The main company was Holiday Magic Cosmetics. Then we had 5 subsidiaries that used exactly the same marketing plan, but they were different products. We had Stay Power, motor oil additives, Bob Cummings vitamins, health foods, that type of
Wow.
thing. We had a clothing company. Ameriprise sold nothing but home care cleaning
Hmm.
products, and each one sort of fell under my umbrella. Uh, I was president of all of them, so
And,
that was
and
what we
Ben,
were selling.
with
Yeah,
that, can I just ask you this question? Not to interrupt you, I apologize, but was Napoleon Hill, when you were doing all this, was he still alive yet to watch you
oh
do some of
sure,
these things? Okay.
yeah,
I'm sure
Zig,
you weren't dithering to do that, right? I
yeah,
kiddingly say
he was
that, but
he was given to me as a gift by William
mhm,
Penpatrick, the owner of the company, who thought maybe I need a little older wisdom around me and wouldn't be afraid to ask Dr. Hill instead of telling Bill Patrick I didn't know what I was doing, which was true. I became president of the company uh, before my 25th birthday. And
wow.
adjusted for inflation, we were doing $3.5 billion. When I left, we were bringing in dollars then $1 million a day. We had between all the companies at any given time, and we were in 20 different countries with 5 different companies. We had over 1 million salespeople working for us at any given time. Some were coming, some were going, as is the nature of sales. But it
Wow.
was a big, big deal. So they brought on Dr. Hill, or Bill Patrick did, to sort of let me have a grandfatherly friend. I was 25 the day he was hired to work with me. He was 84 and old enough biologically to be my great grandfather. And
Wow.
he lived 2.5 years from the day we met to the day he died. And during that time, he was a major influence in my life. We have a little company called The Last Protege, because that's what I was. I was the
Hmm.
last protege of Dr. Hill. He didn't have many because he didn't like working one-on-one with people. And B, all the others, I'm assuming there were a dozen or so at one time, they're all dead. So it's me. I, I'm
Wow. That's
I'm the last
incredible.
protege of Dr. Napoleon Hill.
Jeez. Here's another
Wow.
question. Ted Legal says, what was your biggest challenge in your selling experience, Ben? Your biggest
Fear,
challenge?
fear. Uh, Hey,
That
I'm
makes us
physically.
all feel good, everybody, right?
Oh, sure, sure. I had fear of rejection, fear of public speaking. Public speaking, if you're in selling, get involved in public speaking. Toastmasters to get started, learn how to do group presentations because the program chairman of your local service club is desperate for speakers. And if you can come explain your business over lunch to a group of people, you can just multiply and multiply your effectiveness on people. So my ability to speak in public, brought on by Holiday Magic Cosmetics and hobnobbing with Zig Ziglar. He was a huge influence in that aspect. Zig was 18 years older than I was. He was in the Navy the day I was born. So that was one area I could outsell him and outwork him. It's the reason we won the national sales contest, and he came in second. But I couldn't outspeak him. I had to learn how to do that. And you may remember Zig had that pump handle thing. He had a
Hmm.
speech called Biscuits, Fleas, and Pump Handles, three different little stories built into one talk. Well, he hauled that pump around like you would see at a farm. Started out with a real one. That thing must have weighed 80 pounds. Later, he got an aluminum one that looked like it was shiny stainless steel, but it was aluminum, a little easier to carry. And I said, Zig, I really want to learn to do what you do. How can I get up close and personal with you and watch you work? And he said, carry the pump. So I've probably to 50 or more meetings, I carried the pump in exchange for free admission, sit up front and take notes. And I studied Zig. I didn't become Zig Jr. We had two different styles, but that's how I broke into it. And I became a paid public speaker. I didn't know you get paid for doing it. I thought you just did it because it was fun. I
Right.
became a paid public speaker one day. We had a sales training meeting at 1447 West Peachtree Street in Atlanta in our training room. Zig got up, told a couple of his funny stories, and then he was done. I don't think he was there 30 minutes or working 30 minutes. I did the other 6 or 7 hours of
Oh,
what I
wow.
did, how I did it, and what Jimmy Rucker was doing, and so on. And at the end of the meeting, people are gathering around. I also was asked for my first autograph. A little girl, about 12 years old, I'm guessing, came up to me and said, Mr. Gay, would you sign my book? She had a little autograph book. And I thought,
Wow.
signed your book? I'm just Ben Gay. I just gave that talk. She thought I was a star. So I gave my first autograph, then thanked her, and then looked up. And Zig and Bill Dempsey, our sponsor, were talking at the back of the room. And Bill Dempsey, our sponsor, reached into his inside pocket, pulled out an envelope, handed it to Zig. Zig opened it, looked at it, nodded, put it in his coat pocket. And I thought, I wonder, I knew how the business worked, and there was no reason for them to be swapping paperwork over the business. So I wrapped up whatever conversation I was in and chased Zig down the entrance hall out to the street and said, Zig, let me buy you a cup of coffee. And he said, well, he said, I'd like that. And it was a little coffee shop. We went in and I said, just to keep Dempsey honest, what did he pay you? Knowing he hadn't paid me anything. And Zig said, well, let's see. And he opened up. He said, yeah, $300. That's what we agreed on. This is in 1967. Well, I had just given my last free speech because Zig showed me that Dempsey showed me by accident. Zig pulled out the check. You could get
Check.
paid for this.
Right. Wow.
So,
That's
so that
incredible.
So get in, if you're a viewer, listener, get into public speaking. I don't mean necessarily as a career, although it's a lot of fun, pays very well if you're good, but get into it as a means of communicating. The people that I know who are good in selling either are or would be good at public speaking. They know how to communicate, whether I'm talking to 15,000 people in a big meeting room or one person, it's the same thing. I don't even have to talk louder. They give you a microphone in a big room.
Mm.
So I'm always talking to just one person with 14,999 listening in.
Great advice. And I
Yeah.
think that, like any business that you mentioned there is you're getting into audiences or networks that you normally wouldn't get to, building influence,
Yep.
making those connections, like any business, right? Whether you be in real estate, insurance, car sales, brick and mortar
Right.
business, you got to be out there, letting people know who you are and why you do it.
Yeah.
And that's network marketing in its purest sense.
Yeah,
Purest
that
sense.
is network marketing. Now throw a product in on top of it, and you're in MLM, direct marketing, direct sales. There's just, people, how do you get into that? Well, answer an ad in the paper, maybe. Go see that friend who's been bugging you to join his or her business, and join and get in and learn. And once you get in, find out, we can discuss how you pick a company and so on, because there's a little secret there too. But once you get in, find out who the number one salesperson who's doing it honestly. Every business has its little scummy people in it, but they're no more than any other business. Find out who's the number one person doing it honestly, and until you develop your own style, do exactly what that person is doing. Don't think, just do exactly what they're doing. We used to have a saying in Holiday Magic Cosmetics: until you're making $100,000 a year, which would be $1 million now a year, we don't want to hear your ideas. And they weren't being nasty about it. They're just saying, we're doing fine. You do what we're doing. Once you're doing really well with what you're doing, tell us your ideas. In the meantime, shut up and just do it. Come early, stay late, work on weekends, talk to everybody and anybody. We used to have a little pocket. They said, well, who do you talk to? We used to have little pocket mirrors like a lady would have in a purse. We carried them in our side suit coat pockets, and we'd get it out and say, here's what you do. I wish I had one, but here's what you do. You we'll pretend like this is a mirror. You put the mirror under their nose, and if you get vapor, they're qualified. So, you could get a lot of weird people that way. I said, perhaps, but that's all. Dempsey didn't put a mirror under my nose. Bill Dempsey, he didn't prove it. I answered the ad, good enough.
Oh my.
Draw the circles, ask for the money. We signed up, and off we went.
Yeah. Greg Sneed said, I did an MLM for 2.5 years. Fortunately, it was a business without inventory. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Greg.
Yeah.
And that leads to, a lot of other businesses. If you got a product business, you're going to have inventory to sell it. What some of these business models out there, if you're selling product, you don't have to hold any inventory. It's directly shipped from the supplier or the manufacturer. And so you just may have enough inventory to demo or sample, but you don't have to have $10,000, $20,000 of inventory sitting on the shelf. And I've done that in my wellness center with some product. And, I'd look at that shelf and I go, there's $20,000 sitting there, and they haven't moved at the pace that I wanted.
Yeah.
But now with, network marketing, you can not have inventory. You're making profit day one.
When I go through our warehouse and I'm looking at stacks, pallets of books, I don't see pallets of books. I see pallets.
Did you say books? Is there a cottage industry there? The Ranzoni? Yes.
I see pallets of money. Our job is to turn those books into cash. And unfortunately, in the publishing business, you do have to have some inventory, or you can take less profit and have somebody do the print on demand thing, but that's not as profitable as buying them 25, 30,000 at a time. You get a significant discount. But Rucker and I started with what was called a one pack, one of everything in the basic line that's right out of the script. One out of everything in the basic line that Holiday Magic has to offer. It was $91.41. That was what we started with. And from that little, it called a one pack, from that little one pack, we made millions of dollars, traveled all over the world, met astronauts and kings and queens, and it led a life that most people would only dream of. $91.41 was the entry fee.
Wow.
Wow. Mark, you got a
And
question there?
yeah, I do. So there you are with Napoleon Hill doing your thing, and now I'm gonna we're gonna come back to MLM. But what's so really cool about what you did? Then you even work with Apollo astronauts. A lot of people don't know this, Ben. And then from there, I don't mean to digress, but there's a gentleman out there called Charles Manson. You even got to meet him, and you were
Yeah.
talking about books. And I've got an old copy here, but you said this was his credo, this thing right here, How to
The
Win
only
Friends
book
and
he had in
Influence.
his cell.
Right.
He said it was
And
his Bible and that he couldn't have built the Manson family without it.
right.
Selling is selling. Convincing is convincing. A gun is a gun. You can protect your family with a gun. You can go target shooting with a gun. You can go hunting to feed your family with a gun, or you can stick up a bank. The gun isn't the issue, it's the person. That book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is one of the greatest books ever written. I read it probably, it's always available. And I actually read it about once a year just to refresh myself. I did it to build big businesses and learn how to get along with people. Charlie Manson did it to build the Manson family and kill people. It's a little harsh to say it, and sometimes people go, "Oh, you're endorsing killing." No, Charlie Manson was a miserable, crazy creep, but he learned the techniques of manipulating people to do what he wanted them
Mhm.
to do. And that technique, just like selling, never changes. When you're in selling, we have I probably know, if I was put under sodium pentothal, I know 500 closes, 1,500 ways of overcoming objections. In reality, I really only use a setup to use one close, and I'm doing exactly what the Yankee peddlers were doing hundreds of years ago, and the silk merchants, the diamond merchants were doing 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And I'm always remembering that in my head, trying to remember in my head, all that buyer wants to know is what's in it for me. That's
Right.
it. What's in it for me? And if you can answer that question in a positive manner that he or she can afford, you'll sell it.
Right. And the other thing, if you can just share, because this goes back to MLM in a way, when you worked on that Apollo project, did you ever think you would do something like that, Ben? How did that did someone reach out to you or did you approach them?
Well, thanks to Holiday Magic, we had lovely ladies who were like an Avon lady,
Ah,
but they were called
okay.
Holiday Girls. And one of them, Jeannie Harrington, uh, I didn't know it. I'd seen her at meetings and all, pretty redheaded girl. She called me one day because I was president of the company and said, "Would you like to come down and see a launch, Apollo launch?" And I said, "Well,
Wow.
sure." I used to watch them on television as Chris Kraft called down the numbers 10, 9. We have ignition and we have liftoff. And I'm going to get to go down there. Yeah, I'm in. Well, her husband, Jim Harrington, was a launch test supervisor of the manned space program. And what they invited me down for was the launch of Apollo 14, Alan Shepard's flight, which was right after 13, which you might remember blew up on the way to the moon. They got them back, but the back end of the space capsule blew off. And so NASA was sort of in disarray. So they said they were having a barbecue in their backyard that night. And the night I arrived, and I said, "Fantastic. I'm going to get to meet astronauts." I almost brought my autograph book. I couldn't believe it. I thought, well, I'll probably meet one or two. Well, it turned out this was a welcome Ben Gay to the Cape Kennedy party uh, that astronauts had been invited to. Most of the
Wow.
flight crews, Apollo 15, 16, 17, and a lot of the launch crews and so on. And they wanted to meet the young millionaire who was doing well, because they all knew you're not an astronaut forever. You can be named an astronaut, maybe not even get a flight. When I was there were
Interesting.
100 astronauts on flight. When I first got there, 100 astronauts on flight status. I watched 3 take off in Apollo 14. So the odds of even getting a flight were slim and none. So what they wanted to know was, when this is over and we're back to our Air Force or Navy or whatever pensions, how do we make money? So I wound up with astronauts sitting on the floor cross-legged around me. I was really sort of embarrassed.
Wow.
I kept thinking, this ought to be the other way around. I'm here to be impressed by you guys. And somewhere during the evening, the commander of Apollo 15, Jim Irwin, who was a dear friend, unfortunately died too soon, but Jim Irwin said, "Ben, I'm dubbing you our attitude coach."
That's
So
neat.
that's when I became the attitude coach for Apollo 15, 16, 17, and then worked directly with Miles Ross and Dr. Davis, who were the top 2 people at NASA at the time, and brought sales techniques to them. They were always scrambling to get more money. NASA has never had more than 2% of the budget, and even that's high end, 2% of the federal budget. They wanted more money. I said, do people know what you're doing? Besides the
Mhm.
excitement of a rocket going up, do they know that if they have a heart attack and they're treated in the ambulance on the way to the hospital and their life is saved, do they know that came from NASA? Well, we haven't told them. When they look at their watch and it's no longer the hands and all, and it's digital, they know that's from
Right.
NASA.
Right.
All of the miniaturization of everything, it all came from NASA. And so I got them to put together a report. It would look like a New York phone book of NASA's achievements. And we took those astronauts who were not about to go flying, and we sent them to schools and service organizations all over the country to tell them what NASA was doing with the money, and to tell their Congress people to vote more money for them, and so on. And that was just selling. I taught them how to sell what they were doing. And then networking.
Fantastic.
I noticed at the party, the first one I went to, that the crews and the family of the crews didn't really know the astronauts. Astronauts pulled up in their Corvettes. Everybody got a red, white, or blue Corvette from the local Chevrolet dealer that they could drive while they were astronauts. They all
Mhm.
pulled up in their astronauts. It looked like it looked like the Daytona 500 for Corvettes when they pulled up. But I noticed that the people didn't know them, and they were coming up, can I speak to you, and so on. And so I told them that night, I said, you got a problem here. Apollo 13 blew up. 14 has all sorts, Alan Shepard's flight has all sorts of problems sitting out there, and the people who put it together don't know you. This shouldn't be our first and last barbecue. This should be something you do on a regular basis. And I said to Jim Irwin, the next time you go up, I want little kids, the children of the ground crews and launch crews, standing there saying, I hope this goes well because Uncle Jim
Oh,
is in,
that's
pardon
neat.
me, I choked up. Uncle Jim is in that rocket. So we started bringing them together to make it a team instead of the movie stars and the extras.
Right.
That was just selling.
That's
When
nice.
people say, how did you help NASA? I brought exactly what we did at Holiday Magic Cosmetics and all the other companies to NASA.
Neat. And
What a great story. What a great story. We got
Greg
did
Sneed
Tang
did it
come
again.
from Nassau? That's
Yeah.
Greg Sneeds asked that question.
Greg's on a roll now. He's. Did you hear that, Ben? Did Tang come from NASA? That's what he's
It
asking.
was
Tang.
it was
Remember
developed
Tang?
for, yeah, Greg, you just showed your age. There are whole
Yeah.
generations who don't remember that horrible stuff.
They're probably saying, "What the hell's Tang?"
Yeah, a orange flavored powdered drink that didn't take up as much space as real liquid did, and that and dehydrated condensed foods were
Mhm.
invented and developed for NASA, not by NASA, but for NASA, because the astronauts had to go up. And then to get a little more graphic, they had to not produce a whole lot of waste because
Sure.
in Mercury and Apollo and Gemini and so on, no bathrooms. The shuttle going to the space station was the first time you didn't really have to care too much what you ate. Cute, quick story about eating. It just crossed my mind. They invited me to go on the Vomit Comet. It was a 727 or something that NASA
wow.
owned, and it would start in North Florida and fly down to Key West, and it would go up like this and down and so on.
Mhm.
And the trick was, as it went up and started down, you were weightless
Oh
in
boy.
here. So it gave them weightless. You weren't weightless. You were falling like a
Mhm.
rock, but the plane was falling with you. So you thought you were weightless. Everything's relative. So Jim and the gang said, we're going to do a 26 cycle Vomit Comet ride tomorrow. Would you like to go? Well, I probably should have dialed in on Vomit Comet, but whatever. Uh, and I said, sure, when are we leaving? He said, so and so. And he said, be sure. He said, it's going to say, by the time we get ready, do it, come back, and so on. It's going to be a long time between meals. So eat a big breakfast. I said, okay. So that morning we got up at the Harrington's
Oh
house. I
no.
said to Jeannie, I was told to eat a big breakfast. She said, not on your life. They're playing with you, Ben. Carry no food on that you don't want to see again before the afternoon's off. Over. So they said, did you have a big meal? And I said, oh yeah, I ate eggs, bacon, and so on. And I'm there nudging one another, and we get on the Vomit Comet. And one, I don't tend to get seasick, but on top of that, I had no food in me. And one of the astronauts threw up in a bag while I was floating around minding my own business, doing nothing. And Jim Irwin said, that's amazing. I thought you were going to throw up all over the plane. I said, I would have if I'd listened to you. And now I know I can't trust you.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Ben, I want to get back to some network marketing.
Okay.
Some of the myths out there that only the guy at the top's making all the money. What I come to
Yes.
understand is that anybody can move their team to the top, and because that person brought you in doesn't
Yeah.
mean he's going to succeed, right? So it's based
Absolutely.
on what?
It is true that only the man at the top or person at the top makes money, but you're the top of your business. There's just a lot of organizations, and everybody's the top in theirs. Uh, Dempsey made a lot of money recruiting Zig and me and a lot of other people, but it didn't affect my income at all. That came out of company money, overrides, and so on. I wouldn't pay him,
Right.
so I didn't care. And I built a business. Our organization was much bigger than anything Dempsey ever did. So yeah, the man at the top makes the money. In our little organization, that was Rucker and me. In Zig's, that was Zig's. And in Dempsey's organization, that was Dempsey. The man who owns your local hardware store makes the most money, assuming that he or she is successful. He's at the top. Next door is a clothing store. The person there at the top makes the most money, and so on down the street. So that's true, but so what?
Yeah.
If you're talking about when somebody sent me a thing just this morning, or yesterday, that Bob Crisp, one of the top guys at Amway, died the other day. And he was a multi-millionaire as a direct result of joining Amway and doing a great job. He wasn't the top of anything except for the CRISP organization. So it's absolutely true, but misunderstood by the people who run around saying it. So what?
Yeah. And the reality is that when you look at business success and failure, less than 5% of the businesses that open the doors make it to year 10.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, and a lot of people say, well, gee, a lot of people join network marketing or MLM and they don't make it. Well,
True.
it's the real world, right?
So what?
So what? It's in relationship
What
to
did
your
you-
desire.
What did you do? That's the question. a lot of the people who joined within a month of Rucker and me joining Holiday Magic Cosmetics weren't there a year later, but we were. We came early, we stayed late, we worked on weekends, we memorized the scripts, and after about 6 months of buttheadedness, we did what they told us to do, and we made tons of money. The fact somebody else quit is of no interest to me, as long as they were given the opportunity. I used to take the Napoleon, I've learned it earlier, but Napoleon Hill said to me one day, a guy walked by the office. I said, "That's so-and-so." And I got him to making, he was a milk truck driver. Now he's making $500,000 a year or something. And Dr. Hill said, "Well, that's interesting." He said, "Do you take credit for all the people who don't make it in this business?" I said, "Well, no." He said, "Well, then don't take credit for him either. You had nothing to do with either one of them. Your job is to go to the front of the room and tell them what they ought to do based on your experience and your knowledge. Do not take responsibility for their failure or success. You
That's
made it."
interesting.
And if you can, you probably even said it. If you made it, anyone can make it. Bill Patrick used to say he was going to build a glass cage, put it on a wagon, take me around to shopping centers with a sign. If this guy can make it, anyone can make it.
And that is a great thing is that this type of business model with the right company, the right product.
Yep.
What should a person be looking for? Number one, I believe you should find something that you have a strong passion for, strong interest for, to find a product and or service that fills your level of interest. But what should a person be looking for in a company and or product that will give you an edge just on those two elements right there?
I say it to individual salespeople also, 85% of all the problems in selling go away if you're selling a quality product that's competitively priced. Doesn't have to be the cheapest, but competitively priced, and you spend your days talking to qualified people, qualified to buy it and use it geographically, financially, religiously, whatever. Quality product, competitively priced. Spend your time talking to people who can do that. Now, I understand the passion thing, and I teach that. And if you can also have a passion for the product, wonderful. I didn't have a passion for cosmetics. I was embarrassed to be selling them. I thought it was girly-ish until I found out what the money involved was, and I took it to my mother and sister. And a week later, they were telling me how wonderful the products were. Good enough for me. If we had done our test marketing, our focus groups had been formed. And by the way, my focus groups running this huge company, we didn't have that wasn't a buzzword back then, but this huge organization, my focus group was Martha, her nickname was Marty Conley, my executive assistant, secretary, who sat right outside my door. And when our chemist, Morton W. Scott, would bring me, who did Broma Seltzer and Sally Hansen's Heart of Nails, in addition to every product we ever sold, I would say, "Marty, take this around and see what people think." And the next day, Marty would come back, and if she liked it, it was it went into the line. That's how scientific it was. You find if you don't have passion for it, find people who would, a real customer, and find out how they feel. And then come early, stay late, working on weekends. And if they have a script and a planned presentation that works, learn it. Rucker and I like to talk about how much money we made the first year. The first 6 months we were in business, not a penny changed hands. My mother and my sister kept the free samples I gave them. I never asked them to buy any more. So not a penny, not a dime with anybody changed hands. And then one night, Bill Dempsey asked me at the Georgian Terrace Hotel on the corner of Peachtree and Ponce de Leon, asked me not to come back to the meetings anymore, because he said, "You're depressing people. You never bring anybody to the meetings. When you do, I can't put you up in front of if you do, I can't put you up in front of the room because you haven't learned that script. You haven't learned the recruiting script, and you haven't learned the closing script. And when people see you around here all the time, they assume you're making money. They can't close their customers. They hold up their hand. You go over because you're a nice guy and you got nothing else to do. You didn't bring anybody. And because you don't know the closing scripts, you not only didn't bring anybody yourself, you blow off their prospects. So frankly, you're beginning to depress people. And I don't want you coming to the meetings anymore. Well, that wasn't an option. Rucker and I, by that time, had quite a bit of product sitting around. I said, like, okay, how do I solve the problem? He said, take those scripts I gave you the day you joined. And when you can stand in front of my desk and give them to me word for word, not thought for thought, word for word, you can come back to the meetings. 10 days later, I'm shortening the story a little bit. 10 days later, I stood in front of his desk. I did it. He said, good. I said, what do I do now? He said, oh, take that recruiting script you've just memorized and go talk to somebody you don't know. You've probably blown off all your friends by now. Talk to somebody you don't know. Say that to them. Bring them to the meeting. And he said, I'll have somebody else hold the meeting. I'm not going to trust you with 400 or 500 people yet, and do it. So I did that. Walked in that night with 5 buying units. Husband, wife might be 1, single person 2, so and so, 5 buying units, because I learned the script. I got it in front of the room. I don't recall who it was. Did the 47-minute meeting word for word. The film ended. It said, turn to the person that brought you here, ask how you can get started in Holly Magic. The lights came back up. I got out my ever-present legal pad. I'm never out of arm's reach of a legal pad, and started drawing circles by the script. And when I got done,
Wow.
all 5 agreed to buy. 4 got out their checkbooks. 1 had to make some financial arrangements, I think, as best I recall. But within 2 or 3 days, he paid 5 for 5. And I made as much money that night in 47 minutes plus the closing portion more than I was making with my father all year long. I went, oh, I get it. Learn the scripts, learn the business, learn the products. And if it had been a crummy product, we would have gone somewhere else, not out of ethics at that point, frankly, but it would have been harder to sell, and I needed all the help I could get. So you pick a quality product, something you've, oh, and, I want to get in on the ground floor, back, Tom, to what you first said, the guy at the top of the pyramid. I want to get in on the ground floor of a company. Well, that's neat if you can, and it takes off. Holiday Magic had only been in business about a year and a few months when I joined. It was ground floor. But today, if I got in business, I would join some ground floor opportunity. I know you guys are involved in some wonderful organizations with great products. I would join that if I knew. Or I join Amway. Well, Amway's an old company. Yeah. But when I join, I start Bengay Incorporated within Amway. At least I don't have to tell anybody what it is. Everybody knows what Amway is,
Right.
and the quality of their products and so on. So I'd be off and running. So it was a new venture, or Amway, or one of the other companies of about that age. We're all the same. And you take and I just hit on something I'd like to share with you. Wherever you go, take your company with you. When I worked at Macy's, it appeared I was working there, Davison's on Peachtree Street. I was really running Bengay Incorporated within a Macy's store. They were nice enough to build a 6-story building, put millions and millions of dollars worth of products in there, buy cash registers and everything. But I ran Bengay Incorporated. When I went to work as a manufacturer's rep, I was Bengay Incorporated. I take my business with me. So if I joined Amway tomorrow, or better yet, joined in with you guys, I would bring Bengay with me, and it stays with me. I've done business this week with people I first did business with over 50 years ago. I hear people say, well, when I left that company, they wouldn't let me take my customer list with me. I go, who had the list first? You had to gather the name, address, and customer and give it to them. Keep a copy. I deal with people I've known for 50 years, and the only way off my list of prospects is a certified death certificate from the next of kin. Short of that, you're on my list and you're part of Ben Gay Incorporated.
Ben, you just said something that I have incorporated in my entire sales business. Everybody I've encountered is my customer, whether they bought from me or not.
Yep.
And
Right.
I have a huge database of people that Tom Ginn Incorporated, just like I'm just paraphrasing what you're doing, is that I'm taking me. I'm the franchise. I'm the face of
Yep.
any business I do. It just happens to be I have the rep for a great company that I believe in, and I think you should take a look at it. So what you said is so critical. Anybody that's out there that's maybe looking to go into business, your greatest inventory in business is not what's on the shelf. It's the people that you encounter. That's your inventory.
Yep.
They're going to be a customer one time or another in your life, or they'll join you at one time or another in life if you're operating from that place of trust and integrity and those type of things. People will eventually become a customer of yours somewhere down the line. Would you agree?
Right.
Absolutely. The gentleman I was thinking of that I did business with within the last week to 10 days, I sold the first video games, Pong. And I
Oh
did
my
it.
goodness.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah. Pong, the great thing, when you hit the ball, you could go to the bathroom, have a Coke, and come back. Before it came back across the screen and you had to hit it again. It's not the games of today, but it was the first video game.
Right.
And I sold those not to take to your home, not one at a time. I sold them to investors who bought 20 or 30, and we placed them for them, and they split the money with the guy who owned the pizza parlor or the whatever. A guy bought 50 books from me within the last 10 days who bought 20, I think it was 25 Pong games from me in 1972. We're still friends. We still do. And he's bought some other things along the way. You're a customer for life. And if you get with me, and what I sell is the Ben Gay seal of approval. Tom, based on what you just said, this is exactly what you're doing. I sell me first, Ben Gay. And then Ben Gay says, this is what you ought to do. I put my seal of approval. You guys are probably old enough to remember when your mother wouldn't buy anything that didn't have the good housekeeping seal of approval on it. Yeah. That was how they knew it was good. Well, if you're dealing with me, Ben, what would you do? And if I say, do this, they do it. Here's my great close. It takes about 30 minutes or whatever to get in position to do it. But one of the reasons I have a good 86% closing rate on big ticket sales is I take the time to get into position. But when we finally get there, Mark, I'll use you as my victim. I say,
Okay.
Mark, based on what we've discussed, here's what I suggest we do. Fill in the blank, buy the 25 Pong games or whatever. Fair enough? And 86% of the people say yes, either then or after another little question or two. 86% say yes. So you got to get in position to have the right to ask the question and be righteously expecting them to say yes. And that's it. I mean, that's my great. Now you got to know all the other stuff. The closers part one, I just held up a minute ago. Pardon all the bookmarks sticking out of it. But the closers part one has the kicks, the blocks, and the punches of selling in it. It's like when all my kids, every one of them was a black belt at one time or other. When you go to karate, what they all want to learn is how to kill somebody. I mean, that's the nature of little kids. How do I kill somebody? And so the guy who trained 3 of the 4 of them, Donnie Omega, would say, I've got to give them a little of the taste of the blood. But then I'll spend the rest of their time with me teaching them how to never get in a fight.
Right.
That's the real secret. So I know how to grab you by the throat, wrestle you to the ground, and take your wallet in a sales situation. But fortunately, I never have to do that. I know how it all works, but I stay focused on just a few little points, which are explained in the closers part 2. I'm a sales infiltrator. thanks to Jimmy Rucker, the greatest salesman I ever worked with.
Wonderful. That's,
That's awesome.
great wisdom, great experiences there. I got this because, I've been in business for myself since '83, started in the insurance and investment industry and built an organization. And the reality in business and sales, in the financial service sector, only about 6% ever make it to 10 years. And
Yep.
so, and I hired hundreds of people. And I always thought, is it my leadership, or, people are smarter than me, knew more stuff about stuff than I could ever think of. But, that's the reality of life. I think, to put it, when you talk about business, and, you're picking up the load yourself, and it's your responsibility to make things happen. Even though you might work for somebody else, it's still your responsibility for yourself and your family. So I always like to let people know that, those that are doing it, when I say doing it, and that doesn't mean you're the top earner, you're making what a lot of people consider mega money. A lot of people go into these network marketing because an extra $500,000 a month is a big deal financially.
Extra 500,000 or 500?
500 to 1,000.
Oh yeah, I
It's
thought
a
you
big
said
deal
an
for a
extra
lot of
500,000 is a big deal.
I agree with it. The 500,
Yeah, 500 or 1,000 can be life changing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
it shouldn't be looked down as, because I teach principles about multiple streams of income, residual income, those type of things that, our bills are always going to be residual. Why not have residual income? I think that's one of the things with network marketing.
Right.
You have all those components in place. And
Yep.
just a matter of executing what you say, the script. I was going to say this, it sounds no difference as a salesperson working for XYZ company, and your sales manager says, do the script. What you were sharing is no different. Just do the script, right? I remember teaching scripting and presentations, and it just follow the script and you'll get the results. But no different.
Can I jump in here with just a little thing on the script? Because people start resisting. Oh, I don't want to learn a script. I don't want to sound canned and so on. Have you ever watched television? Ever been to the movies? They're all on scripts or reading off, or reading off a teleprompter. And we're not talking about, when you become a master closer, sales infiltrator, we're not talking about, hi, my name is Ben Gay. 2 hours later, give me your money. It's the script broken up into script chunks. Hal Holbrook just died, or maybe it's a year now. He did Mark Twain. He memorized 9.5 hours of material, word for word, of Mark Twain material. He walked on stage. He did a 2-hour presentation with a break in the middle, or an hour and a half, whatever it was, but a break in the middle. He walked on stage and he always opened with the same Mark Twain story. Based on that reaction, he reached into his script drawer, 9.5 hours of material, and pulled out the next story based on their reaction to the first story. So what he learned was script chunks, what I've come to call script chunks. I can give you the whole deal if you need it, but I'll give you the chunks I think you need, word for word, every time. And people say, well, I don't know. I'll never be on a script. If you've been in selling over 30 days, you're on a script. You say the same things over and over and over again. That's called a script. The question is it a good script written by somebody who knows what they're doing, and has it been tested, and is it successful? That's the type of script I want people on.
Great point.
Ben, Mark, I know you got some questions there, but I've got one. And I think this one here is your wisdom and experience. I've got certain things I do when I get the skeptic. I have no problem dealing with skeptics. I say, it's okay to be skeptical. Just don't be cynical. If you're cynical, it's time to leave the room. Because skeptics they're just curious, right?
Yeah.
Cynics, you just leave the room. I have no problem dealing with that comment. But what in any sales environment or any business environment, when you encounter that skeptic, how do you address that? What would you say somebody that maybe get them to wake up or to listen or whatever the case may be? I'm just curious, your wisdom. And
I set the grounds of the relationship up front in the closers part 2, last
okay.
chapter, sales infiltration, starts on page 257. We set the ground rules. Mark, you and I are going to be working together on this for the next hour or so, or whatever. Let me establish a couple of things with you. I'll be straight with you. I operate on a straight basis. That means I'll be straight with you. You be straight with me. I'm obviously selling something. I obviously think it's good, or I wouldn't be selling it. I'll answer any question you have the nerve to ask. I just, every one of these followed by fair enough. Okay. So, Mark, when I get down to the end and I've asked you if you have anything else to think about, that's not the time to tell me you have to check with your brother-in-law in Cleveland who's an accountant. One, you don't have a brother-in-law in Cleveland, and if you do, he's not an accountant. So you don't do that to me, and I won't do it to you. Fair enough. Fair enough. So now we go forward with an agreed upon thing, which enables me to be able to ask them anything, and they feel they can ask me anything. And then when we get down to the end, skeptic will discuss a little more in up front in just a second. But when we get down to the end, and I say, Mark, here's what I suggest we do. Fair enough.
Right.
Odds are you're going to say yes, because I feel an atmospheric pressure change when I go to close. When I ask you if it's fair enough, I already know the answer. If we're working on the phone, I'm already writing up the order. You can't see me there. In person, I don't do it quite so obviously, but I already know you're going to buy. I know the answer to the question, unless we have a condition. Now, a condition can be no money, none, even that's solvable, but no money, and or the skeptic, the cynic, combination thereof. The type of people who get up looking for trouble every morning and usually find it before noon. And with those people, Tom, back to your original question, after I've done my very best and I've done the tested script and I've used sales infiltration and we've agreed and to be honest with each other, and then you say no, I mean really no, hard no, I'm not an easy quitter, but you say no, then I do what Tommy Hopkins made famous. Next. I get 86% of the people I talk to do what I ask them to do. Therefore, I can't waste all day with you. Maybes will kill you. No, a firm no, so I can get on to the 86% who say yes, is much better than a maybe I'll think about it, and then we chase each other around for several days, weeks, or months, or even the rest of that day. Set it up right. Execute properly, ask for a decision, smoke out any remaining objections. If you say fair enough, say, well, I don't think so. Oh, I must have missed something. Tell me what's preventing you from saying it is fair enough. Well, I don't like the, whatever, fill in the blank. If it's fixable, fix it. If it's downplayable, downplay it. If it's a deal breaker, next. I figured out one time, a lot of us have been in the business a long time, don't really know the numbers. I don't really know that I've given 5,000 paid presentations plus 5,000 probably free, but it's roughly right based on how many speeches I give or used to give. And I don't know how many people I've talked to, but again, based on that 2.5 million people live where I could shake their hand, either did or could. And then of the number of sales presentations, hi, I'm Ben Gay, you're Mark or you're Tom, and now we're going to talk, and this is an official sales presentation, probably 100,000 would be, I could just about prove that in court. Well, that's wonderful. And with an 86% closing rate, that's astounding. You can make a lot of money. The downside on that It means that 14,000 people over the past 50 years or so listened to the astounding scripted Bengay presentation and said no. 14,000 people said no.
Right.
You asked a long time ago in this interview, what slowed you up or was a problem? Fear of rejection. I used to fear them saying no. I would talk endlessly to avoid the point at which they would say no. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop and I didn't want to hear it drop. I have learned, if you're not going to buy, let's find out at 9:30 in the morning, not at 4:30 in the afternoon.
So true.
Love it, Ben.
That's awesome, Ben.
Mark, do you have any questions in and around?
Well,
I tell you what, boy, we can
this is the guy. Yeah, I know. We could keep going and going and going. You mentioned you had fear. And one of our guests, I think it was Ted, asked, how did you get over that fear, Ben? I mean, what drove you? Like you said, you were afraid, like you just mentioned there about you didn't want to hear no, or, after a while, I'm like you. I'm like, okay, no, great, I can move on. Thank you. That's what my brain's saying. I'm not happy about it, but it's like now I can move on to the next one. But what got you over that hurdle? Like, one day, did you just say, okay, cool?
J. Douglas Edwards was one of my mentors. He worked for me as a sales trainer. And I wrote this book after he died, but from my notes and from his recordings, he taught me that the only way to get over fear and develop a closing instinct was to close too soon and too often.
There you go.
It's easier to back off than to march forward. And so I got over the fear of asking for the order by asking for the order. I got over the fear of when to ask by asking too soon. And then I got over being clumsy by asking too often. You do it. Or Dr. Hill told me one time, he said, I mentioned something about fear, and he said, Ben, what you fear will come upon you. So I had to learn to get over that. I had to learn how to get over fear of failure in front of a crowd. Ern Westmore, the great Hollywood makeup artist, introduced me in front of 5,000 people at the Park Sheraton Hotel. He went on first and did his makeup and beauty thing. And then he said, I met a guy today, and I think he's going to be a huge success in the business, already doing well. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Franklin Gay the Third, and dropped dead like he'd been shot in front of 5,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
And that was sort of my reaction. But there was about a 5-step riser up to the stage, and I was 4 or 5 steps up, and the spotlight was on me. Failing that, I would have gone up to the room. So we called for a doctor, et cetera. Whoever the EMTs, whatever you called them those days, came, worked on him for a little while, and one of them looked up and said, "Sir, he's dead." Well, I knew he was dead when he hit the floor. There's a look when you faint, and there's a look when you die.
You're dead.
You're dead. And so I went back to my script. I said, the only thing that was ad lib was I said, ladies and gentlemen, I had lunch with Ern Westmore today. Great guy. He was taking heart pills like they were M&Ms. I don't think this was a surprise to him. But I asked him how he would like to go if he had to go. And he said, on stage, talking to a large audience about beauty and fashion.
Wow.
That's exactly what he did tonight. Let's give him, and now the Stokes litter's right over by the flapping doors. Let's give him one last standing ovation. And they almost tore the place down. When the applause died down and the fire people were gone and all, I turned to him and I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben Gay. I'm a general distributor with Holiday Magic. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight. That's the script, the 47-minute script. I went right back to the script. But here's the interesting thing. Besides the closing rate, we never equaled again in a group close. 5,000 people in the room. About half of them were prospects, half were distributors. In a group presentation, I'd have been happy with 45% closing rate. We closed 90% of the people in the room that night. And I've
Wow.
said laughingly, how can I do that again? We got to get a famous person who's
Person.
willing to introduce you and drop dead on stage. It's hard to come
Oh
up
my goodness.
with those people.
Right.
But it inoculated me back to the original question. How'd you get over your fear? There is nothing you can do to me on a stage now. Nothing.
I can imagine after that, man.
I was inoculated. And after 14,000 no's, I was inoculated. After
right.
being afraid to ask the first night when I brought 5 buy
Right.
units, asked them all to buy, and they all said yes. I almost said, huh? Did you all just say yes? Did you just pick a position? Did you really? So I just acted calm, like that happened all the time. So it's
Right.
do it. Face your fears. I know it sounds easy, and it's not. But if you just do it once, I'm not asking you to face your fears 8,000 times. If you face your fear once, you're 90% of the way home. Twice, you're 100% of the way home. You tell me you
Right.
don't want to buy, I'll go through the motions like we just discussed because I'm good at what I do and I have some pride, but I don't care. And the other thing is when you're doing well and closing the sale doesn't mean whether or not you'll be able to get your car out of the parking garage or have a hamburger on the way home. When you're not going to miss any meals, no matter how it comes out, because you know your percentages, and you're rolling, somewhere in this 100 people or 86 people, 86 of the 100 are going to buy. So
Right.
you say no, I don't care, and I don't mean to be
No, that's a great
sorry,
point.
but I just don't care.
Right.
Babe Ruth didn't like to strike out, I'm sure, but he struck out 70% of the time he went to the
Yes.
plate. He must have gotten over that at some point.
Right.
He probably got over it the first
That's
time.
that's a great point, and I know Reggie Jackson struck out a lot. He held the record that season, and he became Mr. October.
Yeah.
But no one remembers all the strikeouts, just like Ruth. I think Greg has a great point. He says, "I love the no over a week maybe." He's complimenting you on, yeah, right there. And that's a great point, Greg. I'm with him all the way. I hate those maybes.
Greg, was it Greg who just said he got over COVID-19? Somebody did.
No, that was Ernest. Ernest did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that happened too. But Greg,
Right.
You're right. No is a time saver and a money maker.
Yep. And he said that was a killer presentation. So we all got to figure out how we can get someone to fall over dead famous. And I'd like to implement this process.
Some guy says, I want to introduce you tonight. Say, okay, but I've got a couple of requirements.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Give me a fantastic introduction that brings them to their feet and die. That's important.
Right.
The dying
Oh
part
my
is
goodness.
very dramatic. You know who loved
I
to hear
tell
that?
you what, that
that?
is a classic, one of a kind story that would never, you could never script that one again. That's for
Who would love to? Who would love to do it, Ben?
Who loved to hear it. We were at a gathering one night after Ern died, and his wife Betty was there at the.
Oh, really?
It wasn't a funeral or anything. It was enough time had gone by. We were at something, and so she comes over, laughing, holding somebody's arm, another lady, and says, "Ben, tell her the story of Ern introducing you." So I told that lady exactly what I just told you, and she laughed. Mrs. Westmore laughed harder than anybody I've ever seen at that story.
Wow.
We've got a lot of greats. Thanks, Rex, for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you, Rex.
Is that Rex Sykes?
You got it.
Yes, I know Rex. We're partners in a new. There he is. We're partners in a new endeavor. And thanks for dropping by, Rex. I don't owe you any money, I hope. I hope you just do it socially.
Fair enough.
Well, Ben, I'm going to put a banner up here. You bring so much wisdom, knowledge, experience, just reality talking. I think that's important. No fluff,
Yep.
to the reality of what it takes to be successful. And I'm going to bring this up here. Here is this information where they can get a hold of you, get your books. That
Yeah,
information.
especially the third line down. First one is my website. Don't go there. I charge more than the one on the bottom. Second one is my direct mail. Feel free to reach out and contact me if there's anything I can do for you. And the bottom one, stores.ebay.com/Ronzoni books, is where you can get the Closers series, one of it, all of it, whatever, with special pricing and free shipping. And Mark loves that part of the story. Ronzoni books. Ronzoni is my wife's maiden name, and the reason you can get it for less there is that she steals her inventory out of my warehouse. So she doesn't have that pesky thing of paying the printer and paying the publisher and so on. So that's the best place to get it. And if you call me or email me and want to ask me a closing question, here's what I'm going to say to you first. Do you have the Closers parts 1 and 2 minimum? And if you don't, end of conversation. I don't spend my day reading to you out of a book you could have bought and had in your own library.
Right.
And
Right.
almost everything I've written down about selling is in one of the 5 books we currently promote. Closers Part 1, Closers Part 2, Closers Part 3. How to develop the power of how to develop sales closing power, the book I wrote for Doug Edwards, and an obscure book, unless you're in timeshare, but that's sort of a shame because it's one of the best things I've ever done. The Art and Science of Resort Sales. If you own a timeshare, the person who sold it to you read this book, and the Closers probably. But the reason I mention that, odds of having timeshare people on here probably slim and none, is this book shows you how they go from, hi, my name is Ben Gay, to accepting a check for $30,000 an hour and a half later. And that technique and procedure works in any type of selling. I have a guy who's an investment banker, buys these by the caseload, because they're talking about million dollar sales. And he said, this is just a quick way to do it. But don't ask for help until you've bought and read the Closers Parts 1 and 2 minimum.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, do you have anything else?
I think Ben knocked it out of the park, as we say here. And by the way, Ben, how about
Greg Sneed's saying that he owes me money.
Oh, well, he said no. He says
no. All right.
he
he
said that you put money in his pocket, but he's not going to pay you any royalties. And I understand that, Greg.
Yeah, he sounds like Rucker.
Greg has that Rucker mentality. He's a jokester, a prankster, but I think, if Jimmy Rucker's out there listening to this, we would love to have you sometime, the two of you together, and just talk about what you did, how you did it. I was kidding around backstage, but really, like, you were ripping and roaring in Midtown and making it happen in Atlanta and doing a lot of things that people have no clue. When I do go downtown, I do it with a smile now when I see like the Fox or these different hotels now that they're huge and they're renovated, or we talked about the Atlanta Crackers back in the day. You were exposed to a lot of cool things when Atlanta in its infancy was growing. That era I miss. There's a lot of unique things that Atlanta went through.
When my family and I being the little kid in the back seat, moved there in 1948, the population of the greater metro area was less than 250,000 people. So almost everything you see in Atlanta was not there in 1948, and I got to watch it grow, and then it's grown phenomenally since I left. But I get back often enough to watch with amazement what has happened. But yeah, a lot of fond memories there. We were quick one. I know we've overstayed our welcome, or I've overstayed mine. one thing, talking about having a wild and crazy time, somebody in one of those groups, if you were born in the 1940s, this, or if you went to Murphy High School, this, and so on, asked, what was the craziest thing you ever did? Jimmy Rucker and I, fueled by youth, stupidity, and some beer, Carling's Black Label beer,
Oh
drove my brand new 1962 Volkswagen at midnight to the top of Stone Mountain, right over the carving.
No, you didn't.
We did. And
Wow.
picked up a hitchhiker on the way down. For some
Oh
reason,
Lord.
that really
Oh my
amazed Rucker.
goodness.
Yeah, I repeat, youth, stupidity, and beer.
My. And was it nighttime or
Midnight when we got
oh Lord.
when we
Oh
got to
Lord.
over the carving, midnight.
How did you get into the park doing that at that hour? I mean, did you?
Security probably wasn't what it was today. We
Right.
just knew where there was a trail that people walked up. It wasn't a road. It was, sheer granite walking. And the
Yes.
Volkswagen with its engine right over the rear wheels and rear wheel drive held its grip pretty good. So we were able to go way beyond the point of sanity, and then got up to the top. And based on looking down at the Stone Mountain Lodge or whatever was there at the time, we knew where we were. We were dead over the carving. If you've ever been to Stone Mountain, it'll give you the chills to think about it.
Yeah, now they have cable rides up there, if you dare.
That cable ride would have been a better idea.
Yeah. My goodness, Ben.
Well, Ben, I tell you what, I think that's a great story to end on, because when you have a vision and a will and a few beers, you can accomplish anything.
Oh my goodness.
I love it, Ben.
Oh man.
We're going to hold you in the back room for a couple of minutes. Mark and I are going to wrap up, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have you come on.
Always.
And,
my honor and my pleasure. I love working with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Hold tight, Ben. That's what I love about it. True authenticity.
Oh yes, you can't beat it.
Yeah,
he's tremendous.
I appreciate what he said, tonight about, because I've been in business myself. Biggest majority is
right.
I basically call myself psychologically unemployable. I'm just an entrepreneur, climb the mountaintop. I've had a few beers too along the way, but I really appreciate Ben coming in and sharing to break the myths, because a lot of people are operating out of hearing things, not understanding things, and opportunities are in front of us all the time. And it could be the one that can make a big difference in your life, either the product itself or the opportunity side. And I just encourage people, come to the table with an open mind. Just come to the table with an open mind. So,
I mean, Ben talked about, just real quick, I know we have to go, but he said about incorporated, people say your brand, and that's true. It's all about bringing your brand, whether you work for somebody or you're in networking or, you have your own business. It is about your brand, how you personalize it, internalize it, it becomes it's all about you. And he goes, I go back to this: service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. And here's another guy doing it, and Ben's that type of guy. He's a giver.
Yeah. So, Mark, in closing, anything else? Would you want to wrap up?
Oh, that's it. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I could go on here: Greg Sneed, Rex, Robert, in the beginning we had Randy, Ernest, I'm probably Ted. Yeah. I mean, there was
Randy.
I could go on. Randy. Yeah. I did mention him,
yeah.
But thank you all for hopping on board here tonight. You don't have to do this. Both Tom and I know that. Wes Wyatt, the great Wes Wyatt, was here, the man behind the scenes, and really fortunate you decided to hop on board and listen and learn from another one of the giants that's
Yeah.
out there. And he's still doing it. And I'll probably have to find out backstage when's 4, 5, and 6. What's cooking with that? So we got 1, 2, 3, and who knows? There's probably other projects out there we don't even know about that Ben's working on.
You got it. Well, Mark, we're going to wrap it up. You know, we're going to be fully transparent to everybody. We have opportunity with ASEA, and we're not here to explain what it is, but we highly encourage you, if you want to know what Mark and I are doing, making some significant difference in people's lives with health and their economics, explore what we have to offer with ASEA. So with that all said, we're going to wrap her up. Ready?
You got it.
Okay.